Welcome to the Beau Show, the home of faith, family, and freedom. The arts and entertainment have a bevy of personalities that skew left, and not just kind of left, but far left, what you would call the delusional left. To give that view a platform, well, there's a show for that. It's called The View. And as I've mentioned in past shows, The View is called The View because it is one singular perspective, that of a radical part of the Democrat Party. These are no Joe Manchin, Kirsten Sinema chicks. The one conservative they have on the panel is no conservative at all. It's Alyssa Farah, and she is a defiant anti-Trumper. So a prerequisite for being the conservative panelist on The View is that you may have a slightly different opinion than the rest of the ladies, but you must hate Donald Trump. And think about it. It's interesting because while Trump may be liked by slightly less than half of women in America, he is someone that half of them would vote for. That makes the ideological balance on The View's panel completely unrealistic. But that is, of course, by design. When conservative figures like Donald Trump Jr. or Ben Carson or Ted Cruz have gone on The View, the whole point is to gang up on that guest, show disrespect, and create absurdist drama. The way they treat a Democrat guest is entirely different. It is night and day different. The entire point, really, is hostility to anyone with whom they disagree. Rather than having viewpoint balance, they try to structure the show towards viewpoint homogeneity, where they can fill their echo chamber. The panel of Whoopi Goldberg, Joy Behar, Sunny Hostin, Ana Navarro, and Sarah Haynes are all uniformly left. And the bond that they create with Alyssa Farah is over a common hatred of Trump. This also includes their guests. They find ways to bring these subjects up. The sad part is that the audience, who are likely just a cross-section of tourists, tend to egg this on with their applause. I personally don't know many conservative people who want to go watch a taping of The View. So because The View has made those people feel unwelcome, they don't come. But in reality, if you had a true cross-section of the country in that audience, you'd have half of them booing what's being said. But see, we never hear that because they have been bullied into silence. That gives the false impression that everyone in the audience agrees with them. When comics go on stage, they really don't always know what jokes are going to work and what might not. Each audience is different. The audience may feel compelled to laugh because they want to laugh, but the comic still has to make them laugh. By contrast, The View brings in audience members already on the side of the women hosting it. Typically speaking, the audience is going to always be on the side of the host. This is also true of Bill Maher's live audience. But interestingly enough, when he has made comments about the Democrats getting too woke, for instance, and does it with his typical comedic flair, the audience is still with him. They laugh and applaud. I give credit to Bill Maher for speaking his mind, even when it goes against progressive groupthink, and even when his audience may not always agree. Bill still has a modicum of logic to him, whereas the women of The View have tossed logic to the wind and act as if they are an extension of the squad of the Democrat Party. So that leads me to a recent episode of The View, in which they had actress Patti LuPone on as a guest. She is promoting her new movie, Beau is Afraid, with Joaquin Phoenix. This caught my attention at first simply because the name of the movie has my name in it, even my unique spelling, but it wasn't the movie title that was remarkable about this particular episode. It was what LuPone said. Now, in full disclosure, I worked with Patti LuPone in a Stephen Sondheim show when I was in my senior year of college studying musical theater. And as you can imagine, to be in any show with a Broadway legend like LuPone was a huge honor. She is incredibly talented, and that cannot ever be taken away from her. I learned a lot from her as I was on stage. But oftentimes an actor's views make us think of them differently. She went on The View, and here's how the conversation went.
I don't like flying anymore.
I hate it.
No.
Yeah.
But I just stay in a corner.
Well, we need you guys all over the country and all over the world, so you all need to fly.
I do, but
It ain't easy.
No, it's not easy anymore. Not since 9/11.
Nah.
No, not since 9/11.
Well, talking about situations that cause panic, you've been very outspoken about your disdain for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And so we're wondering, just out of curiosity, what was your reaction to him getting arrested?
It's not enough.
The 34 counts, not enough.
So this was teed up by a conversation about flying. And LuPone says ever since 9/11, she doesn't like flying. I'll pause it here because listen to the audience. I don't know if they flash one of those signs that says applause or not, but listen to the audience of grifters who agree with LuPone. They erupt in applause, which gives you the impression at home that every woman in the world agrees with her. This is, of course, not true. She continues.
It's just not enough.
Yeah.
I want Fani Willis and I want Jack Smith. I want anybody else that's indicting him to indict him now so I can get over my PTSD in this country. Excuse my language.
PTSD or TDS, Trump Derangement Syndrome?
It's not enough. And I also would love for, what I'm so upset about is the fact that there's no pushback when he lies. I would like the police that cried to come forward and say, yes, we cried. Or if the police down at the courthouse didn't cry, go, what's he talking about? He's lying to you. We did not cry. Yeah. But there's no pushback.
Yeah.
And so we listen to this stuff that he spews every single day, and it becomes part of our daily lives. It becomes part of our conversation. And let's talk about Jim Jordan. Jim Jordan, go home to your own district.
Yes.
And wait, I gotta ask you. And DeSantis, how are we feeling about DeSantis?
But I just want to say New York's murder rate in 2022 was 5.2% per 100,000 people, nearly 3 times lower than Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah.
So go home, Jim Jordan. Stop picking a fight. Do your job that you were hired for.
Be nice.
Get out of New York.
Tell him again.
And stop wasting our money, our taxpayers' money. And thank you for correcting that, because when I said it was 4 times,
You said what?
but it's 3 times higher.
DeSantis and the LGBTQ.
Well, that's extremely upsetting.
Yeah.
That is extremely upsetting. These are human beings.
Yeah.
And I could cry. They're not harming anybody.
No.
I don't know why he's doing this. I don't know. I mean, and I've said this before, and I'm going to get in trouble. But I have said this before, and it's been in print. I don't know what the difference between our Christian right and the Taliban is. I have no idea what the difference is.
You're not the only person who's said that.
I just don't know what the difference is.
Yeah.
What's happening in this country right now in the name of religion is so dangerous.
Yeah.
And it's not this country. It's not America as far as... And when I was growing up, I didn't know America was an experiment. They never said America was an experiment. When we were growing up, it was a democracy. And now it's in, such danger. It's so upsetting.
Yeah.
It's so upsetting. And it's upsetting to hear the loudest voices and not any kind of pushback to the loudest voices that are the extremity in this country.
Well, that's why we need people like you that speak out.
I'm on the other side. They need someone in the middle.
Let me ask you about...
Whoa, okay. Notice that the audience did not erupt in applause after the comparison of the Taliban to Ron DeSantis and the religious right. I would have loved for the cameras to have panned around and been on the audience. But notice, they didn't show that. She likely offended over half the people there. But rather than boo her, which they should have done, they let it slide. She can offend over half the country, but God forbid anyone offend her for that comment. Oftentimes we have to separate the performer from the person. I've always been able to get along with people that I work with, even if we disagree ideologically. The problem is that many on the left do not want to work with conservatives or Republicans, even if they are talented. This actually happened to me a few years back when a director that I had emailed about being in his film shot me down because he had visited my Facebook page and saw me as the devil. He wouldn't even review my talent because he had discriminated against me for my views. That's the big difference between the overall mindset of the right and the left. Clint Eastwood is a director who's a Republican, but he hired Democrats Sean Penn and Tim Robbins to be in his film Mystic River. Why? Because he valued their talent and thought that they would make the best cast members. He didn't look at them ideologically. The flip side of that is that leftist-minded executives will exclude conservative actors on the basis of ideology. They blackball them. This happened to Gina Carano. It also happened to Roseanne Barr after her tweet about Valerie Jarrett. They killed her off the show. Now, they wanted to profit from the show that she made famous, but did not want her associated with it. It meant more for them to cancel her just like that than understand her. So let's use some reason and logic here. Let's take LuPone's comparison to heart and see whether the Taliban is the same as the religious right, which would include Governor Ron DeSantis, since that's the person that she was asked about. We will include him because she included him. I want to compare side by side what the Taliban does and what the religious right does. Let's go back to where the conversation started with LuPone. She said she doesn't like flying after 9/11. Well, who caused 9/11? Well, that would be Osama bin Laden and a terrorist ring known as Al-Qaeda. They were aided and abetted by the Afghan government, which is the Taliban. Bin Laden's movements and communications and training of suicide bombers were all made possible by the Taliban government in coordination with Al-Qaeda. They trained and indoctrinated the men who got on those planes on 9/11 and hijacked them to fly them right into the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. Over 2,000 people's lives were lost. The converse question is, did the religious right or Ron DeSantis train any person to be a suicide bomber and fly planes into buildings that would kill innocent Americans? The answer is no. So right at the outset, we have a terribly stark contrast between the Taliban and the religious right. One kills, one does not. That was the springboard to LuPone's argument.
Keep watching at epochtv.com/The Beau Show.